The Varaxian Empire had ruled the stars for over 1,000 years. They were the most feared species in the known galaxy. Their warriors stood 9 feet tall with bodies covered in thick black armor that grew from their own skin. Their claws could cut through metal like paper. Their teeth could crush bone without effort. Every species they met had 2 choices: bow down or die. Most chose to bow. Those who did not were erased from existence. High Commander Zethryx sat on his throne aboard the flagship Devourer. He had conquered 11 worlds himself. He had watched entire civilizations crumble before him. He had never known fear, never known doubt, never known failure. To him, war was not a challenge. It was simply harvesting. His scout ships had found a new world 3 months ago. A small blue planet orbiting a yellow star in a quiet corner of the galaxy. The creatures living there called it Earth. They were soft, weak things with no natural weapons. No claws, no armor, no venom. They had not even left their own planet yet. They were still fighting among themselves over patches of dirt and imaginary lines on maps. Zethryx had laughed when he first saw the reports. These humans were barely worth conquering. But they had resources. They had water. They had land that could feed Varaxian colonies. And most importantly, they had billions of workers who could serve the Empire. Prepare the subjugation fleet, Zethryx ordered. 300 ships should be more than enough for these primitives. His second-in-command, War Master Crystal, bowed low. It will be done, High Commander. Shall we offer them the choice? Yes, Zethryx replied. We are not savages. We will give them 72 hours to surrender. If they refuse, we will burn their world to ash and take what remains. The fleet arrived on a Tuesday morning. 300 massive warships appeared in Earth's sky without warning. They blocked out the sun over every major city. Their shadows fell across New York and London, Beijing and Moscow, Sydney and Cairo. Billions of humans looked up and saw death hanging above them. The message came in every language. The Varaxians had studied human communications for months. They knew how to speak to these creatures. People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Varaxian Empire. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Your leaders will present themselves to us. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your people will serve. If you refuse, your world will be cleansed. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. Choose wisely. Panic spread across the planet. People ran through the streets screaming. Governments held emergency meetings. Religious leaders called for prayer. Some humans gave up immediately, falling to their knees and begging for salvation that would not come. But not everyone broke. Lieutenant Commander Katie Morrison was 34 years old. She worked in ORD, the military base buried deep inside a mountain in Colorado. Her job was to watch for threats. She had spent years watching for missiles that never came, planes that never attacked, dangers that never arrived. Now the biggest threat in history hung in the sky, and she felt strangely calm. Katie had 2 children at home. A boy named Danny, who was 7, and a girl named Sophie, who was 5. Her husband, Jake, was probably holding them right now, probably telling them everything would be okay. She wanted to be there with them. She wanted to hold them and never let go. But she had a job to do. She studied the alien ships on her screens. She watched their positions, their movements, their patterns. And she noticed something that made her heart beat faster. General Howard, she called out. You need to see this. General Pete Howard was 61 years old. He had gray hair, tired eyes, and scars from 3 different wars. He had seen the worst things humans could do to each other. He thought nothing could surprise him anymore. He was wrong. What is it, Morrison? He asked, walking to her station. Look at their formation, sir. Katie pointed at the screen. They're not moving. They're not patrolling. They're just sitting there in fixed positions. Howard studied the display. His eyes narrowed. No defensive posture at all. Exactly, sir. They're completely confident. They think we can't touch them. They think we're just going to roll over and surrender. Howard was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his grandchildren. He thought about his wife, who had passed away 2 years ago. He thought about every soldier he had ever led into battle, every friend he had buried, every flag he had folded and handed to a crying widow. They've never fought anyone who could fight back, he said slowly. Have they? Katie shook her head. I don't think so, sir. I think they've only ever conquered species that gave up. Look at how careless they are. No rotating patrols, no overlapping fields of fire. They're not expecting any resistance at all. Howard felt something he had not felt in years. Hope, small and fragile, but real. Get me the Joint Chiefs, he ordered. And someone wake up the president. I think these bugs just made the biggest mistake of their long and ugly lives. In the hours that followed, something remarkable happened. Humans stopped fighting each other. Old enemies became instant allies. Russian generals shared intelligence with American admirals. Chinese scientists worked alongside European engineers. Countries that had pointed nuclear weapons at each other for decades now pointed those weapons at the sky. The politicians argued at first. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to pray and hope for divine intervention. But the soldiers knew better. They knew what surrender meant. It meant slavery. It meant the death of everything humanity had ever built, ever dreamed, ever hoped for. We fight, General Howard told the Emergency Council. We may lose. We probably will lose. But we fight anyway. Because that's what humans do. We don't go quietly. We don't bow down. We rage against the dying of the light. The president, a former soldier herself, nodded slowly. How long do we have? 72 hours, Howard replied. That's not much time. But it's enough to make them bleed. It's enough to show them that Earth will not go down without a fight. Above the planet, High Commander Zethrix waited patiently for the surrender that he was certain would come. He had done this many times before. The pattern was always the same. First came denial, then fear, then acceptance. These humans would break just like all the others. He could not have been more wrong. Humanity was about to show the galaxy's deadliest predators what it truly meant to fight for survival. The Varaxians thought they were hunters. They were about to learn that they had found something far more dangerous than prey. They found humanity, and humanity did not surrender. The Varaxians expected crying. They expected begging. They expected humans to fall on their knees and plead for their lives. That was what every other species had done. That was the natural order of things. The weak bowed to the strong. Instead, they received silence. For 48 hours, humanity said nothing. No surrender messages. No desperate pleas. No attempts to negotiate. The communication channels stayed quiet. High Commander Zethrix found this strange but not worrying. He had seen this before. Some species froze like frightened animals when faced with death. They became so scared that they could not even speak. He was certain the humans would break eventually. They always did. But Zethrix did not understand humans. He did not know their history. He did not know about the countless wars they have fought against each other. He did not know about their stubborn refusal to quit, their ability to endure suffering, their talent for finding hope in the darkest moments. He saw soft bodies and primitive technology. He did not see the iron that lived in human hearts, not in those 48 hours of silence. Humanity was not frozen. Humanity was preparing. Dr. Samuel Grant had not slept in 2 days. He was a scientist who studied life on other planets, though he had never actually seen any until now. He worked at MIT, one of the best universities in the world. Now he worked in a bunker underneath the mountains, surrounded by soldiers and computers and fear. His job was simple: find a weakness. Every creature had one. Every species could be hurt somehow. The Varaxians were strong, but they could not be invincible. Nothing was invincible. He studied every piece of data they had. He watched videos of the alien ships. He analyzed the strange signals they transmitted. He looked at photographs taken by satellites and planes. He barely ate. He barely drank. He just worked. On hour 36, he found it. Their ships vent heat through external fins. He announced to the room full of generals and scientists. Look here, along the bottom of their hulls. Those large flat surfaces are radiators. They dump excess heat into space through those structures. General Howard leaned forward. Why does that matter? Because they evolved on a frozen world, Samuel explained. Their home planet has an average temperature of -40 degrees. They need those radiators because their ships generate enormous heat, and they have no tolerance for high temperatures. If we destroy the radiators, the ships will overheat. The Varaxians inside will cook. A murmur ran through the room. For the first time, people looked less afraid. How do we destroy them? The president asked. Samuel pulled up more images. The radiators are the least armored part of their ships. Their designers never expected anyone to target them because no species has ever fought back effectively. A direct hit with a nuclear warhead should shatter them completely. In another part of the bunker, Captain Lisa Brennan was meeting with her squadron. She was 36 years old, with short brown hair and steady hands. She had been a test pilot before joining the military. She had flown planes that had never been flown before, pushed machines to their limits, and walked away from crashes that should have killed her. Fear was an old friend, but this was different. This was not a test flight or a training exercise. This was the end of the world. They want volunteers, she told her pilots. They're modifying spacecraft to carry weapons. The mission is to hit those alien ships where it hurts. Most of us won't come back. Silence filled the room. 12 pilots, 12 faces, 12 lives hanging in the balance. A young pilot named Danny Riva raised his hand. He was 28, the youngest in the group. What happens if we don't volunteer? Lisa looked at him with tired eyes. Then someone else goes. And maybe they're not as good as us. And maybe more people die because we weren't brave enough to do what needed to be done. Danny nodded slowly. I'm in. I'm in. One by one, the others agreed. They knew what they were signing up for. They knew they would probably die. But they also knew that their families, their friends, everyone they loved was counting on them. Lisa thought about her sister Amy and her 2 nieces. She thought about Sunday dinners and birthday parties, and all the ordinary moments that made life worth living. She might never see them again, but if she did her job right, they might live to see tomorrow. All right, she said. Let's go save the world. The hours ticked by. Around the globe, humanity worked with desperate speed. Missiles were armed. Spacecraft were modified. Plans were made and revised and made again. Old enemies shared secrets they had kept for decades. Scientists who had competed their whole lives now worked side by side. It was the greatest act of cooperation in human history. And it was born from the shadow of extinction. High Commander Zethrix grew impatient as the deadline approached. He had expected surrender by now. The delay was annoying, though not concerning. Perhaps these humans needed a demonstration of Varaxian power. Target one of their large cities, he ordered. Something coastal. Show them what happens to those who defy us. Well, Master Crick still hesitated. High Commander, our orders are to give them the full 72 hours. I am aware of our orders. I am also aware that these creatures need motivation. Destroy the city. A beam of energy lanced down from one of the Varaxian ships. Miami vanished in a flash of light. 3 million people died in an instant. The ocean rushed in to fill the crater where a city had once stood. Around the world, humans watched in horror. Mothers held their children. Fathers wept openly. The scale of the destruction was beyond comprehension. But something else happened too. Something the Varaxians did not expect. Humanity got angry. The fear did not disappear, but it was joined by something stronger. Rage. Pure, burning, unstoppable rage. These aliens had come to their home. They had killed millions of innocent people. They had threatened to enslave the entire human race. No more. Move up the timeline, General Howard ordered, his voice hard as steel. We launch in 1 hour. Kitty Morrison watched the countdown on her screen. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was clear. She thought about her children. She thought about the crater where Miami used to be. She thought about every person who had died and every person who might still live. 60 minutes to launch, she announced. All systems are green. In the sky above, Zethric smiled with satisfaction. The demonstration had worked. Surely now the humans would surrender. Surely now they understood their place. He did not know that death was coming. He did not know that the soft, weak creatures below had teeth of their own. He did not know that in trying to break humanity, he had united them. And united humanity was the most dangerous thing in the universe. The attack came 1 hour before the deadline ended. Every nuclear missile on Earth launched at the same moment. Thousands of warheads streaked up through the atmosphere, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. It was the largest military action in human history. Commander Zethric watched the missiles rise with amusement at first. He had seen primitive weapons before. His ships had shields that could stop almost anything. His point defense guns could shoot down incoming objects with perfect accuracy. These humans were brave, perhaps, but ultimately foolish. Destroy them, he ordered calmly. The Varaxian defense systems activated. Beams of energy reached out and touched the missiles, turning them into clouds of fire and metal. One after another, the warheads died. The sky lit up with explosions like a deadly fireworks show. But there were too many. The Varaxian systems had been designed for ship-to-ship combat. They expected large, slow targets. They were not built to track thousands of small, fast objects coming from every direction at once. For every missile they destroyed, 3 more slipped through. 17 nuclear warheads found their targets. 17 Varaxian ships vanished in balls of fire brighter than the sun. The explosions were silent in the vacuum of space, but the destruction was absolute. Thousands of Varaxian warriors died in seconds, their mighty ships torn apart by human weapons. Zethric stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Red warning lights flashed across the screen. Damage reports flooded in from every part of the fleet. Ships that had conquered entire worlds were now floating debris. Impossible, he whispered. It was the first time in Varaxian history that a conquest fleet had taken losses. The first time any species had successfully fought back. The first time Zethric had felt something cold and unfamiliar creeping into his heart. Fear. But the attack was not over. Captain Lisa Brennan led the second wave. Her spacecraft was a patchwork of human and stolen alien technology, held together with welded steel and desperate hope. Behind her flew 11 other pilots in similar ships. They were called the Hornets, and they had one mission: sting the enemy and make it hurt. Stay in formation, Lisa said through her radio. Target the radiator fins like we practiced. 1 pass, then get out. Don't be heroes. Danny Rivera's voice crackled back. Copy that, Captain. 1 sting and run. They flew through the aftermath of the nuclear attack, Debris floated everywhere. Chunks of alien ships mixed with the remains of destroyed missiles. Lisa had to dodge a piece of hull plating the size of a house. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Ahead of them loomed a Varaxian destroyer. It was massive, nearly a mile long, covered in that strange black armor that seemed to absorb light. But along its belly, Lisa could see the radiator fins. Large, flat, vulnerable. "I have target lock," she announced. Firing. Her missile launched with a kick that pushed her back into her seat. It streaked across the space between them, a tiny dart thrown at a giant. For a terrible moment, Lisa thought it would miss Dot. It did not miss. The missile struck the radiator fin dead center. The explosion ripped through the thin metal, shattering the heat exchange system. Without the ability to dump its excess heat, the destroyer began to cook from the inside. Temperature alarms screamed throughout the ship. Lisa watched as escape pods started launching from the crippled destroyer. The Varaxians were abandoning ship. Running away, retreating. "They're retreating," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "They're actually retreating." But the Varaxians were not completely beaten. Their remaining ships opened fire with everything they had. Beams of energy and clouds of metal projectiles filled the space around the human attackers. Danny, Rivara's ship, took a direct hit. Lisa watched in horror as his spacecraft exploded, pieces flying in every direction. He was gone. Just like that. 28 years old, and now nothing but debris. "Danny!" she screamed. More ships died. Johnson, Patterson, Wu. 3 more pilots gone in the span of seconds. Lisa's controls sparked and smoked as a near miss damaged her systems. Warning lights covered her dashboard like angry red eyes. "Pull back," she ordered the survivors. "Everyone pull back now." They ran. It was not cowardly. It was smart. They had done their job. They had proven that the Varaxians could be hurt. Now they needed to survive so they could fight again. Tomorrow. Lisa's ship barely made it back to Earth. Half her systems were dead. Her oxygen was leaking. One of her engines had been completely destroyed. She came in hard and fast, crashing more than landing in the Nevada desert. The impact knocked her unconscious. She woke up in a field hospital surrounded by doctors and generals. Her body ached everywhere. Her ears were ringing. But she was alive. "How many?" she asked, her voice rough. General Howard stood beside her bed. His face was grim. "6 made it back. You lost half your squadron." Lisa closed her eyes. 6 pilots dead. 6 families destroyed. 6 empty chairs at 6 dinner tables. "But you hurt them," Howard continued. "You really hurt them. 23 ships destroyed or disabled. They've pulled their entire fleet back to high orbit. They're scared, Captain. For the first time in their history, they're actually scared." Lisa opened her eyes again. Tears ran down her cheeks, but her voice was steady. Then it was worth it. In orbit above Earth, High Commander Zethrix held an emergency meeting with his surviving commanders. The mood was dark. They had lost ships. They had lost warriors. They had lost something far more important. They had lost their sense of invincibility. "These creatures are more dangerous than we thought," War Master Crystal said. "They do not behave like any species we have conquered before. They do not freeze. They do not surrender. They fight." Zethrix slammed his claw against the table, cracking the metal surface. "They are primitives. They should have broken." "Perhaps," Crystal replied carefully, "we should request reinforcements from the home world." Zethrix hated the idea. Asking for help was admitting weakness. But he was not stupid. He had underestimated these humans once. He would not do it again. "Send the message," he ordered. "Tell them we face unexpected resistance. Tell them to send more ships." The message was sent. The response would take weeks to arrive. In the meantime, Zethryx ordered his fleet to maintain distance and begin systematic bombardment of human military targets. If they could not break humanity quickly, they would break them slowly. The war had truly begun, and humanity had proven something important. They could bleed. They could die. They could lose friends and family and everything they loved. But they would not quit. They would not surrender. They would fight until they won or until there was no one left to fight. The Varaxians had come looking for easy prey. Instead, they had awakened something ancient and terrible. They had awakened the human spirit. And that spirit would not rest until the invaders were driven from Earth's sky. The galaxy was watching. And the galaxy was starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, these soft little creatures from the blue planet were something special after all. The war lasted 6 months. 6 long, bloody, terrible months. The Varaxians bombarded Earth from orbit, raining fire on military bases and cities, and anything that looked like a threat. Millions died. Entire regions became wastelands of ash and rubble. But humanity did not break. For every base the Varaxians destroyed, humans built 3 more. They went underground, into mountains, under the ocean, into places the aliens could not easily reach. They hid their factories in caves and their laboratories in abandoned mines. They built weapons in basements and trained soldiers in subway tunnels. The Varaxians had never seen anything like it. Every species they had conquered before had collapsed once their centers of power were destroyed. Humans had no center. They were everywhere. They were like water, flowing around obstacles, finding new paths, never stopping. High. Commander Zethryx grew frustrated. His careful bombardment should have ended the war in weeks. Instead, it only seemed to make the humans angrier. Every time he destroyed something, they came back stronger. It was like fighting a creature that grew 2 heads every time you cut one off. The Varaxians also landed ground troops. They expected easy victories against the soft, clawless humans. They were wrong. Sergeant Marcus Cole had been an army mechanic before the invasion. He fixed tanks and trucks and anything else with an engine. He had never expected to become a warrior. But war did not care about expectations. He now led a guerrilla unit of 30 fighters hiding in the Rocky Mountains. They had learned something important about the Varaxian ground troops. Their armor was nearly impossible to break, but their joints were different. The places where arm met shoulder, where leg met hip, or helmet met neck plate. Those spots were vulnerable, and they were especially vulnerable to cold. The bugs evolved on a frozen planet, Marcus explained to his team. But their body heat keeps them warm inside that armor. If we can drop their joint temperature fast enough, the armor locks up. They can't move. His team had built crude but effective weapons. Canisters of liquid nitrogen stolen from hospitals and laboratories, rigged to explode on impact. They called them frost bombs. The first time they used them, Marcus watched a 9-foot Varaxian warrior freeze in place like a statue. The alien's joints had locked completely. It stood there, helpless, unable to move or fight back. Marcus walked up to it and placed mining explosives on its chest. "This is from Miami," he said, and walked away. The explosion echoed through the mountains. It was ugly work. It was brutal and violent, and nothing like the movies. Marcus had nightmares every night. He saw the faces of friends who had died. He heard the screams of people he could not save. But he kept fighting because stopping meant losing. And losing meant everyone he loved would become slaves. While the guerrillas fought on the ground, scientists worked to understand the enemy. Dr. Nina Patel was a communications expert who had spent her career studying signals and codes. Now she studied the strange transmissions that bounced between Varaxian ships. She worked in a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, not far from where Marcus Cole fought his war. Her team had captured pieces of alien equipment from crashed ships and disabled ground troops. They were trying to understand how Varaxian technology worked. It took 4 months. But Nina finally cracked their communication system. "I can read their messages," she announced to the gathered military commanders. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but her voice was strong. "Everything they send to each other, I can see it. Their orders, their reports, their private conversations. All of it." General Howard leaned forward. "What are they saying?" Nina pulled up her translation software. "They're scared. They've never faced resistance like this before. Their commander, Zethrix, has requested reinforcements from their home world." A murmur ran through the room. Fear mixed with hope. "And?" Howard asked, and the home world refused. Nina smiled for the first time in months. "The Varaxian Empire is spread too thin. They're fighting to control 17 different star systems. They don't have ships to spare for what was supposed to be an easy conquest." The room exploded with noise. People were cheering, crying, hugging each other. For the first time since the invasion began, they had real hope. "Zethrix is alone," Nina continued when the noise died down. "He has no backup coming. No reinforcements. No rescue. Whatever ships he has now, that's all he gets." General Howard stood up slowly. He looked older than he had 6 months ago. His hair had gone completely gray, but his eyes burned with determination. "Then we need to build a fleet," he said. "We need to take the fight to them." It sounded impossible. Humans had barely reached their own moon. How could they build ships capable of fighting an interstellar empire? But humanity had spent 6 months learning. They had studied captured alien technology. They had reverse-engineered Varaxian shields and weapons. They had stolen secrets from disabled ships and interrogated captured soldiers. They knew more about their enemy now than any species the Varaxians had ever faced. Construction began in secret locations around the world. Underground facilities where satellites could not see. Ocean floor bases where Varaxian sensors could not reach. Thousands of workers laboring day and night. Building ships from a combination of human determination and alien technology. Katie Morrison, now promoted to commander, oversaw the construction of the flagship. They called it the Defiance. It was smaller than a Varaxian destroyer, but faster and more maneuverable. Its shields were based on stolen alien designs. Its weapons were a mixture of human nuclear technology and Varaxian energy systems. "Will it fly?" General Howard asked her one day, looking at the half-finished ship. Katie nodded. "It will fly, sir. And it will fight. These alien bastards have no idea what's coming." Around the world, similar scenes played out. Ships were built in Brazil and Russia, China and India, South Africa and Australia. Every nation contributed. Every nation sacrificed. Humanity was building an armada. The Varaxians sensed something was wrong. Their bombardment was killing millions, but human resistance was not weakening. If anything, it was growing stronger. Zethrix ordered increased surveillance, but the humans had learned to hide. He sent a final message to the home world, his tone desperate. "These creatures do not break. They adapt. They learn. They grow stronger from every blow. We need more ships. We need more warriors. If you do not send help, I cannot guarantee victory." The response came 2 weeks later. "Victory is expected. Failure is not an option. Deal with the humans or do not return." Zethrix stared at the message for a long time. He was alone. His empire had abandoned him. And below, on that stubborn blue planet, humanity was preparing something. He did not know what, but he knew it would be bad. In her bunker, Nina Patel intercepted the message from the Varaxian homeworld. She shared it with the military commanders, who shared it with the workers building ships. who shared it with the soldiers fighting guerrilla wars across the globe. The enemy was alone. The enemy was afraid. The enemy could be beaten. For the first time in 6 months, humanity allowed itself to believe in victory. Not just survival, victory. The final battle was coming. And this time, humanity would bring the fight to the enemy. The final battle came on a cold morning in December. Earth had been fighting for 6 months. Millions were dead. Cities lay in ruins. But humanity had survived. More than survived. They had prepared. Admiral Christopher Lane stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking out at the stars. He was 52 years old, a quiet man who had spent his life serving in the Navy. His wife Margaret and daughter Lucy had died in the bombardment of San Diego 4 months ago. He had not cried when he heard the news. He had not screamed or broken down. He had simply become something harder, something colder, something focused entirely on revenge. Around him, 300 ships waited for his command. They had been built in secret, crewed by volunteers from every nation on Earth. Some were large warships like the Defiance. Others were small fighters designed for speed and surprise. All of them were ready to die. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Katie Morrison said from her station. She had requested transfer to the flagship. She wanted to be part of the final battle. Christopher nodded slowly. "Open a channel to the fleet." His voice echoed through 300 ships. Thousands of men and women listened, their hearts pounding, their hands steady on their controls. "Today, we take back our sky," Christopher said. His voice was calm, but carried weight like a mountain. 6 months ago, they came to our home. They killed our families. They burned our cities. They thought we would break. They thought we would bow. They were wrong. He paused, letting the words sink in. "Today, we show them what happens when you threaten humanity. Today, we show the entire galaxy that Earth will not be conquered. Today, we end this war. For everyone we lost. For everyone still fighting. For the future of our species. No surrender. No retreat. Victory or death." The channel closed. For a moment, silence filled the void of space. Then, like thunder rolling across the sky, the human fleet began to move. High Commander Zethrix received the warning too late. His sensors had not detected the human fleet because the humans had launched from locations his satellites could not see. By the time he realized what was happening, 300 enemy ships were already rising from Earth like a swarm of angry insects. "Impossible," he breathed for the 100th time. "Where did they get ships?" War Master Crickstill's voice trembled as he reported. "Unknown, High Commander. They appear to be using modified versions of our own technology. Our shields, our weapons, they have copies of everything." Zethrix felt something he had never experienced before: despair. He had underestimated these creatures from the beginning. He had called them primitives, soft, weak, easy prey. Now they were coming for him with ships built from stolen Varaxian secrets, crewed by warriors who had nothing left to lose. "All ships, defensive formation," he ordered. "Target the largest vessels first. Do not let them break through." The battle began with fire and fury. Human ships dove into the Varaxian formation like wolves attacking a herd. They were smaller and faster than the alien vessels, darting between the massive warships, targeting weak points, refusing to stay still. Varaxian weapons that had destroyed planets struggled to track the nimble human craft. Captain Lisa Brennan led a squadron of fighters in the first wave. She had recovered from her injuries and demanded to return to combat. Her ship, the Phoenix, was smaller than the one she had flown before, built for speed rather than power. "Target the command ship," she ordered her pilots. "Cut off the head and the body dies." They wove through a storm of energy beams and projectiles. Lisa watched two of her pilots die in the first minute, their ships torn apart by Varaxian weapons. She did not slow down. She could not slow down. Too many people were counting on her. The Devourer, Zethrick's flagship, loomed ahead. It was the largest ship in the fleet, a monster of metal and malice that had conquered 11 worlds. Lisa locked her weapons on its radiator fins. "This is for Danny," she whispered, thinking of the young pilot who had died in her first attack. "This is for everyone." She fired. Her missiles struck true. The radiator shattered. Alarms began screaming throughout the Devourer as its internal temperature started to rise. On the bridge, Zethrick felt the heat growing. Sweat formed on his armored skin, something that had never happened before. His species did not sweat. They were cold-blooded, evolved for frozen worlds. The rising temperature was agony. "Aye, Commander," Crickstall reported, his voice strained with pain. "We are losing. Our ships cannot adapt to their tactics. They fight like nothing we have ever seen." Zethrick looked at his tactical display. It was covered in red. 200 of his ships were already destroyed or disabled. The humans were everywhere, attacking from every angle, refusing to give up even when their own ships were destroyed. One human fighter, its engines failing and its hull breached, flew directly into a Varaxian cruiser. The pilot had aimed for the ship's fuel cells. The explosion destroyed both vessels. The human had traded his life for a single enemy ship. It was madness. It was suicide. It was the most terrifying thing Zethrick had ever seen. "They do not fear death," he said quietly. "No, High Commander," Crickstall replied. "They fear what happens if they lose. They fear for their families, their world, their future. They fight not because they want to die, but because they want their loved ones to live." Zethrick understood then. He finally understood what made humans so dangerous. They were not the strongest species. They were not the smartest or the fastest or the most advanced. But they had something the Varaxians had never encountered. They had something worth fighting for. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the Varaxian fleet was broken. Of 300 ships, less than 50 remained. The Devourer floated dead in space, its crew cooked by their own heat systems. High Commander Zethrick, barely alive, sent a message he never thought he would send. He surrendered. Admiral Christopher Lane accepted the surrender with no expression on his face. Inside, he felt empty. They had won. Margaret and Lucy were still dead. But the future was saved. Other children would grow up. Other families would stay together. That had to be enough. The surviving Varaxians were allowed to leave. They took their damaged ships and fled into the darkness of space, carrying a message back to their empire. Earth was not to be touched. Ever again. In the weeks that followed, humanity emerged from its hiding places. People climbed out of bunkers and basements, out of caves and submarines. They looked up at a sky that was finally empty of threats. Many cried. Some laughed. Most just held each other in silence. Dr. Nina Patel stood with Sergeant Marcus Cole on a hillside overlooking what had once been Denver. The city was mostly rubble now, but survivors were already beginning to rebuild. What happens next? Marcus asked. Nina smiled. We go to the stars. We take the technology we stole and we build real starships. We find other species who have suffered under the Varaxians. We make allies. We make sure this never happens again. Think the galaxy is ready for us? Nina thought about everything humanity had done. They had faced extinction and refused to die. They had united across old hatreds. They had learned, adapted, and overcome. They had turned their greatest weakness, their soft bodies and short lives, into their greatest strength, a burning need to protect what they loved. No, she said finally. The galaxy is not ready for us. But they will learn. Far away, On a frozen world at the heart of a dying empire, Varaxian leaders listened to Zethric's final report. They heard about ships built in months, warriors who did not fear death. A species that grew stronger the harder you pushed them, one elder spoke. The words that would echo through Varaxian history for generations. We sent our fleet to hunt sheep. We found wolves. No, worse than wolves. We found humans. And across the galaxy, other species began to whisper a new truth. The small blue planet in the quiet corner of space was not prey. It was not a target. It was a warning. Humanity had announced itself to the universe. Not with words or diplomacy, but with fire and blood and the unbreakable will to survive. The galaxy's deadliest species had met their match. They had met humans, and humans were just getting started.